We're live, so please be warned. Okay, so before I open this meeting tonight, members and officers in physical attendance with an electronic device, please mute it to avoid feedback. And remote participants, if they can keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. This meeting may be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting and will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. Recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile or tablet device, it's not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Please, can you speak loudly and clearly? We're using this OWL device here tonight. It may be necessary to stand a little closer to our OWL system in order that remote participants can hear clearly. And if you can't hear and you're on the remote device, please write in the chat so that Democratic Services can let me know and we can ask the speaker to speak up. My introduction tonight. So welcome everyone to the Regeneration and Property Committee meeting, including any visiting members. We don't have any visiting members, no. So any members visiting remotely and members of the public that may be online. I advise you that the following staff are in attendance tonight. We've got the Head of Regeneration, Economic Development and Property, that's Joanne here. We've got Economic Development and External Funding Manager, that's Kira Mansfield at the end. And we've got our Business Support Officer, Property, Eva Harris. Is she online? I think so. Not at the moment, okay. And then we've got our Leisure Services Manager, Jake Jenkins, who most of you will know. And Democratic Services tonight is ably put together by Philippa Davis. There's no fire drill planned. So please take me out when the alarm sounds. You should leave via the exits. That one only, isn't it? That one there. If anyone requires special assistance, no, put your hand up. No, good. Any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Eddie Thomas, who is substituted by Councillor Ben J. Martin, and also from Councillor Simon Clark.
Okay. Lovely. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? Now? No? No. Declarations made. Okay. Okay, committee, we need to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of September 2022. That's minute numbers 314 to 322. Does everyone agree with them? Great. And the extraordinary meeting held on the 26th September 2022. As correct records, that's minute numbers 323 to 325. That's the bit.
Only under the declaration of interest, we were in town.
Thank you for the correction. Anything else? All agreed?
Agreed.
Lovely. Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda. Here we go. Item 5 is Masters House and 44 Trinity Road, Sheerness, known as the Old Library. Expressions of interest. So I'm going to ask the officer to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. I've nothing substantial to add to the report. It sets out the process by which we're seeking tenants for Masters House and for the Old Library. Thereafter seeking delegated authority to go in to Head of Regeneration, Head of the Property to undertake subsequent negotiations and enter into any of these agreements. The two buildings are being, the expression of interest for the two buildings are separate expressions of interest, just to make that clear. And so separate bids can come forward for those two buildings. But because there has been an expressed interest from unsolicited approaches about Master's House over the summer months, have led to further discussion about the possibilities around the old library. We wanted to give the opportunity for people to come forward and make an approach on both buildings. There was on the part of those that have approached us about Master's House, there was some excitement about being able to move the buildings forward together and the additional capacity that the old library might bring over time on top of the possibilities at Master's House.
First of all, I'm going to ask if there's any questions for the officer before we go on to moving the item. Any questions anyone wants to raise? So Trula, do you want to ask?
Thanks, Chair. I hope that the thing you can hear me okay. I know this is about a specific purpose, this agenda item, but I do think it's the moment that we're nearing an end of this, to celebrate the fact that this has been achieved as far as it has been. You can't talk blithely about trying to regenerate and improve our town centre and have a property there that a significant property there that we allow just to become derelict and deteriorate. So I think it's very important, when we knew we'd got a capital receipt available, which had come from land on the Isle of Sheppey, that it should be invested in Sheppey, and in particular in this particular property, which in itself has also brought in other money. And there's nothing better than to use our money to bring in other money. And we didn't know when we made the decision that we would go forward with this, that it would ultimately enhance and give credibility to our Levelling Up Fund, but it has. It's serendipity, if you like, but the fact that the terms of the Levelling Up bid require us to be part of the investment, and we've already got to this point, it is really very important. So yes, we've got something specific to do here, but I'd like to congratulate you and the officers who've carried this forward. It's been a major piece of work for this council over the last few years, and it's so convenient that it fits so well into what we hope will be a successful Levelling Up bid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So, thank you. I would like to comment that I did have a little walk around today. I went over to Master's House and to the old library just to go and have a snoop, see what the contractors are up to. And they're doing, and I'm proud because it's a local company as well that won the tender, and the quality of the fit out is really good, what they've done. The heating was on, and we know the air source heat pump works, so that's great. But I think the locals will be very proud of that building. Just even at the front, the facade, seeing the windows, the new windows in. But when you go in and see the quality of the fit out inside, it's a proper job. So I'm very pleased. Councillor Stephen.
Like I don't think Roger himself said, I was getting a project money, and it's wonderful. Thank you for that one word. It's a fantastic project.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in terms of place, what was encouraging, picking up on your points there, is actually it had someone who was working on site who was looking at the units said, "Oh, I've been looking for a unit like this for my business." So I think someone working on it can see. And then I had someone, a business trader, high street trader, come to me asking about something they wanted us to try and help support. And he was asking when he could come and hire a room because he needed it for his business. So that's just me being there for half an hour outside. I thought, well, that's a good sign. So, Councillor Whiting.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and it is good to see this move forward. Is it, just a question really, is this a fully repairing lease? And what sort of legacy responsibilities will we as the freeholder have on the building?
I think the intention, councillor Whiting, is that it would be a fully repairing lease. I can't pretend to have the property expertise to know in terms of what the dilapidations arrangements would be at the end of that lease period. But I would assume that our standard leases would cover dilapidations.
So if I can come in on that, I know I've spoken to our officers, our property officers about this. Obviously it depends what comes back at the expressions of interest, and the exact requirements of those. So, you know, depending on lease length, etc., whether it's an FR&I or an internal repairing lease, those will need to be dealt with at that point, in consideration of the whole offer of those expressions of interest, really, isn't it? Whole offer. Yeah. Okay.
If I can just come back to it, I'm pleased to hear that, but these can be quite substantial, there can be some substantial liabilities if you don't get it right. So I'm sure we will get it
I think,
right, but I just, you know, is there a plan B in case we really get stuck on that?
well, we shouldn't really need a plan B because we will know at the outset whether it's an internally repairing lease, an FR&I lease, etc., and the terms of that. What is most important, and I think what we've found over the last few years, is actually making sure those leases are monitored and managed. That is absolutely key. So, and that is over to the officers, and that is our responsibility as a committee to make sure that, you know, we'll be holding them to account on that. Councillor Bett, you wanted to...
Yeah, my question is specifically on 44 Trinity Road, which is a building I know intimately. My office used to be on the second floor. With Master's House, we got to a position where we couldn't re-let it because of the position it was in terms of energy performance, etc. My understanding is 44 Trinity Road has an EPC rating of E currently, and has been vacant for a significant amount of time and hasn't had work done on it. My question, I suppose, is if we're asking people to express an interest, taking on this point about what kind of lease will it be, have we not got a duty to bring it up to a standard before they take it on, or are we expecting them to pump money into it?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Joanne to come in on that one for you.
Yeah, so the documents around the expression of interest for the old library are clear that it hasn't been invested in the same manner that Master's House has been invested in. And we are looking for prospective leaseholders to come forward with their proposals for what investment they would bring. And we would assess expressions of interest accordingly.
I think it's fair to say, looking around it today, there's some things that will need to be done prior to any tenant taking that on. So we've had that discussion already, certainly about cutting the grass and the weeds at the front, and sorting out a number of internal issues. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I've just got a question on the consultation. 5.1 Dockyard Church. It says that the principal complimentary offer being agreed. Just trying to get a bit more information on that consultation and making sure that the Dockyard Church, what they are doing, and everything.
I'll bring Kieran in.
What I've seen with this, we haven't actually bottomed out what the final use is going to be. To know how, whether it's going to be complimentary or how it's all going to work.
We've had a long-standing, very active conversation with the Dockyard Preservation Trust, and we have followed and met with a number of their potential providers who will be looking after their building and providing their offer, if you like. They have changed, and one of those most recent changes, relatively recent, but we have met with them a couple of times, the new operator with whom they're working as their provider. Our understanding of what their offer is that it is very much more, if you like, youth and startup orientated, whereas I think whilst we are in the hands of potential operators and what they come forward with through the expression of interest phase, we collectively, as I say, us and the Dockyard Trust, see a synergy in that the offer at Masters House is probably for like occupiers that are at a slightly more mature stage in terms of their business development. And there is an attraction from their preferred provider to potentially being involved in both situations, and they may very well come forward as one of the expressions of interest.
I'll just,
Yes,
that's how, I think that's good, especially if they do show interest and get something, but a concern that I've got is with us agreeing this tonight and having delegation and chair and officers, it's the principle that I don't agree with. And as we set up as a committee system, be able to make decisions and have more involvement and who takes, especially with property, who's going to be taking this on. And I'm not comfortable with just saying, oh, we could delegate it to property officers and one person. As a chair, I think it has to be coming back to the committee. I understand with the concerns about time and doing this and trying to fit it. But when we did the committee system, we were told that we would have more meetings and we would have to be coming in a bit more position. If we're going to be putting it back to just officers and the chair of committees, that's without cabinet system. We haven't got cabinet members. Wants to have committees and everything. So I agree with everything that's being done, but until we know who this is going to, who the shortlist is, I think it should be down to this committee to actually look at that and maybe that.
okay, thank you.
And I will, because of that, I will propose recommendations to auditors. So that the first one doesn't say in consultation with the chair of Regeneration Property, does come back to us. And then the same, again, after that point, I guess we could be then saying that it's consultation with the chair of Regeneration because it's the legal contract. But we recommend that motion one, I would just propose that comes back to the committee.
Councillor Byrne?
I'm happy to second that to tell the conversation. I welcome the progress. Very slight hint of caution that we don't count our chickens before their hats and we actually pat ourselves on the back for the great job we've done. We haven't got tenants in there at the moment, and until they are bumps on seats, it's not job done. But so far, so good. It's fortuitous, I think, that 44 Trinity has come on as well, because I don't recall that ever being mentioned right now. Never turn the gift horse down the face man, whatever the saying is. So if there is an opportunity there, then we'd be foolish, I think, not to look at it and look to progress it. It's a slight shame that we hadn't had this conversation also back in the day with Master House about about a year ago. Now at the time, but the actual question, I agree with Councillor Hunt, but if the recommendations, if that isn't agreed, why is it, and then maybe we've seen this, I don't know, on recommendation one, you've only got 2 people in there, on recommendation 2, you've got 3. Would it not be better to have 3, at least, regardless of the amendments, on both aspects? So I just think if you've got 1% and with respect to the chair, you could get to an impasse. And why, in which case, why have we got the senior head of legal services on the legal side? Why don't they not be involved in that first one as well, or someone else to have that third option? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Trudon.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Can I confess that I don't hear very well in here? I don't know if anybody else does or can't hear. So if I don't cover all the points that you've just made, I really couldn't hear you very well. But I do think, the sort of appeal that we have a committee system, therefore more members should be involved. As members, that means we should be more involved in the policy making of the council, which is what you are being. And the policy issue here is, you know, do we really want to go ahead with Master's House and the Trinity Road? Once you've decided what you want to do, then you want the most practical, pragmatic way of taking that forward operation. And what is being proposed here is if we want to go forward with this, and we do, then what is the best way to get this done for the benefit of our residents as quickly and as effectively as possible? It isn't necessary for members to scrutinise every operational detail. We have officers to do that, and we have our chairman to actually ensure that our position is being properly represented. So we, you know, I just don't think we come here every time to say, I want to be involved in deciding every cross T and every semicolon. So with respect, I think that's just quibbling. And I would hope members would actually read these regulations.
So if I'm going to ask, thank you very much, Councillor Truelove. We haven't proposed and seconded it yet. We will do shortly. I haven't accepted the amendment. If you're going to make amendments, you need to tell us in advance, especially on this committee. It has a resource implication. It has a timing implication. And why that is so significant is if we meet every couple of months, but if a tenant, for any reason, we select someone and a tenant, for whatever reason, withdraws and we have to come back to you, it means we have to have another committee. We could potentially lose a tenant by not acting. You know, we've got to act pragmatically and we have to trust in our officers to manage our assets. So I think we've done it before about how we manage our assets. There is a significant risk if we decide that we are going to manage these assets as a committee. So I'm not going to take this amendment because I don't think it's thought through and the resource implication in advance. I'm going to propose the recommendations.
Chair, can I stand on?
Yeah, hold on. I think there's some others indicating, sorry.
It was purely a factor. I seem to recall one of the things that was mentioned that may not have been picked up by my colleagues was the potential of an impasse between a member and an officer. It does not say that there's delegation to a member. There is no delegation to a member.
No.
The officer makes the final decision.
Yeah.
It is purely a consulting role.
Yeah.
The member would play, and I think that needs to be clarified very plainly. So if the officer disagrees with a member, it's the officer's decision.
Bit on the head.
Exactly.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. Councillor Hunt, a little one, and then we shall go.
So I understand you don't accept that. I'll make another proposal, if you would accept that. And that is that the recommendation 1 includes consultation with chair of the Regeneration and Property Committee and all members. So at least that won't affect any timing, but at least it does all members of GS been included in the discussions.
No, I'm sorry, but again, this is about finding ward members at the time. And if they decide they're going on holiday and they decide not to pick up the phone or return the emails and then come back and say, actually, sorry. So I'm going to propose, sorry, I'm going to propose this. Is there a seconder for this motion? Thank you. That's Sarah Stevens is seconding. Thank you. Right, I propose we go to the vote.
Chair.
I've let everyone
Well, I
speak.
did have a question that hasn't been answered.
What?
Let's see, head of the legal services, why they the second one? Well, we've got 2 on the first. but we
Because
also
it's a
have
legal document. It's a legal document and you're implementing a lease. So they by definition will have to be involved.
Yeah, I get that, but would it not be wise to have them also on the first part as well?
No, because that's a commercial decision of the officer, the
Okay.
head of regeneration. That's their role.
So just to reassure, the shortlisting process has 3 officers involved. So it's not just me looking at them and then going to the chair. There's 3 officers who have a variety of expertise. That will be a property colleague and then a head of development colleague. So there is, it's not just one person. And then legal will come in at the point at which we're executing the decision when we need their fine eye, their attention to detail.
Right. Let's move to the vote then. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? Abstentions? Thank you. The motion's carried. Oh, sorry, the recommendations are carried as set out. Thank you. Right. Item 6, this is the Sheerness modular toilet contract award and Barton's Point modular toilet. So I'm going to ask the officer to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully the report has provided enough detail for the 3 recommendations that are taken this evening. To give you just a quick overview, the decision was taken to look at replacing the existing Barton's Point toilet and shower block, that's been in a bad state of repair for some time. And also identified that Sheerness was the only beach we had without a public toilet. So therefore, that area was identified as a opportunity to put in a brand new facility there. They are slightly different. The facility at Sheerness is a 3 cubicle modular unit, so male, female and accessibility. Obviously the unit at Barton's Point is slightly different, where it has 5 6 cubicles, so 2 male, 2 female, and accessibility. And we've also incorporated a sluice room for the camping users of that facility. It is a direct replacement on the site where the existing facility is, and as part of the tender requirements, the existing facility needs to be removed prior to the new install. The specification was designed for each, but tendered as together. So each unit was priced individually, but it was evaluated as one tender with a request or a requirement for interested parties to offer a discount value based on their award of both contracts at the same time. Not all took that opportunity, but majority did. You'll note on 2.6, there were 6 companies that produced a return, and their tender price, this is for both facilities, with a discount allocated to each as appropriate, ranging from 227 to 564. You can note there that company A was the most cost effective and the highest quality score. The funding arrangement is within budget. The budget is £304,000, which is derived from 2 separate pots of money: Special Projects Fund and the capital receipts from Sheffield Improvement Fund. The £120 for Sheerness was also included as part of the levelling up match funding for the wider project at Sheffield. There are going to be some ongoing costs once these facilities hopefully are put in. Ongoing maintenance is estimated there for each of them for you. And in addition to that, there's going to be ongoing costs for obviously cleaning, opening and closing and so on. Both units will no doubt, particularly as the Sheerness is a new one, result in additional utility costs. Obviously, that's very difficult to project at this stage with unknown usage. Barton's Point showers aren't being used currently, albeit the toilets are operable. And obviously the facility at Sheerness will be brand new. That's all I've got, Chair. I'll obviously open up for any questions if there are any.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Harrison, you have down first.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be delighted in fact to second when you propose the recommendations. I remember when the previous administration shut the Sheerness toilets, there was a public outcry. Oh no, you can go and use Tesco's. Not ideal. And they got more and more Instead of people wandering in sandy feet and not much clothing. You know, we're a seaside resort, we need a toilet. And, you know, at long last, we're going to get it, and that's a bonus point. I seconded councillor Truelove back in February 2019, and he proposed that we could have placed the toilet up there, and obviously we know we got knocked back, we all know we can't afford it. When residents and visitors say, well, I did try and use the toilets on the Dartmouth Point and the foot went through the floor. And what does that say? We haven't been maintaining our assets, say properly at all in some cases. And that's why at the end, you end up having to replace them. What we're going to get to replace both these sites, you know, really does look good. And they will fit in, to my mind, to the local area. So I'm absolutely delighted to second. When you propose, I'm happy to second.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, I think this clearly is going to be a huge asset to the two areas, and in particular Bartons Point is a major tourist attraction. Obviously, Sheerness is a seaside town. So, Councillor Martin, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, and do not take this the wrong way, I do fully support the proposals, just to get that out of the way. But I do feel there is a clear need in a seaside town near the beach to have access to public toilets. I do, however, feel that in these times of difficult financial circumstances for councils, was it 60 pence in the pound cut since 2010 from our budgets from central government? How lovely that is. Have the necessary savings been identified in other public toilets in order to provide the new ones at Shepping? And in addition to that, with regards to having separate male and female gendered toilets, given that these designs, the only difference realistically is going to be the placement of the sanitary towel bin, could we not have inclusive unisex toilets suitable for those of the transgender community as well as
I'll ask the officer to pick up on that. Don't know if that's something we have a policy on.
I think there was two questions there. The savings one, I'll need to come back to you on, in the sense that, as far as I'm aware, the funding has been secured, irrelevant of savings. And the second point, yes is the answer. We could. I think when we did the consultation on the Minster toilets with members and officers, there was quite a debate around ladies going into men's, vice versa, and at that time it was felt that we would proceed with single sex. And that conversation was repeated as part of this process. So we've as part of the specification, requested that. That said, you're quite right that it's not too difficult to adjust that, and will make no difference, I'm sure, in any way to the pricing.
I've got Councillor Whiting, Councillor Harrison, and then I've got Councillor Truelove.
Thanks, Chairman, and like others, I support this move. I am confused slightly though as to why this has come to committee for a committee decision, when we have the officers have clearly done their work in organising the tenders. And I would have thought we'd have made this decision without it coming back here. If the previous decision wasn't to come back here, a decision where we don't know what the cost and the incomes are going to be, we don't know what the cost of repairs to Trinity, Trinity Road, we don't know what the likely dilapidations might cost in the long run. That decision was not going to come back to the committee, whereas this one, where we're talking now about just replacing a toilet block, and we have the money for it anyway, is something that we don't seem to trust the officers in doing. I don't understand the logic in those two conditions. I'd be grateful.
So it's to do with the contract value. So as I understand it, anything above £100,000 has to come to committee, regardless of what the nature of that will be. Yeah, it's to do with the contract value. Is that somebody trying to come in?
Right, okay. I've got Councillor Harrison next, Councillor Truelove, and then Councillor Bowen.
Yeah, I can't see it specifically, i.e. where it is in the list. There is an email that I passed on to Martin Cassell, which was the latest government guidelines on new toilet provision. And it specifically said single sex provision. So I can see, I've still got the email. See it there somewhere. I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you.
But it obviously can.
Yeah.
If we've been out to public consultation and we're going to totally ignore them,
Yeah.
And that's not our coalition's way.
Councillor Chula?
Thanks, Chair. This just seems to me to fit in. It's all of a piece with the previous items. It's all about trying to make Sheerness a better place to visit, and it fits in with everything that else has been going on. Finance implications on number 6 does actually give members a indication of really where this has come from. So the decision to allocate funding to both these projects were made when we had a cabinet system. We don't set up a committee system to then decide things that have already been decided and not now discipline any longer. So that was the decision, and the funding is clear. There was 184,000 from the Special Projects Fund, and that was agreed and noted at the last cabinet meeting in April. And long before that, the Shepherd Improvement Fund, which is part of the money that's going to Master's House as well, that was decided 2 years ago and fully announced. So these are decisions that are not really reversible, and therefore it's not really a matter of this committee to determine that we go ahead with this or not. And again, operationally, it's not the same as the previous item. This is within the domain of the offices. This isn't actually going out to a third party. So that isn't really a problem. I just think once again, we need to welcome this. That the amount of money that this council has been finding without any pressure on the revenue budget, because neither of these two allocations are revenue budget, has actually found lots of money to put into Sheerness. And the point is, the allocation to the budget is actually in excess of A, and therefore there will be a funding available, as Councillor Martin asked, to support revenue costs associated with this particular capital development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chula. I totally agree. Councillor Bowen?
Thank you, Chair. Just lots of personal observation. Again, welcome this. I think it's good. I wonder, I don't know who they are, don't need to know who they are. I wondered what planet at times where the company head was to be so far off the spec of everybody else. It's either smacked of they actually really didn't want to do it anyway, or they didn't understand what was being asked, because that's not just not a little bit out, that's double in some cases. So I'm glad we're not going there. My main point, I agree with Councillor Martin. I think in this day and age, and I wondered, what was there the question when people were consulted on, do you want male, female toilets, or actually was there no question? We're making an assumption. I think in this day and age where people's, in terms of their identity, is for them to decide as individuals, to be shoehorned into male or female toilets is something we really should be giving consideration to, if not for this, but certainly going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't know if you want to speak on that, what we covered it previously.
Can review it without, it's something we can review if that's felt.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I've got Councillor Bett, and then I've got Councillor Steve.
Yeah, I welcome this, obviously. I can see the interesting difference the £200,000 that we put forward in February 2019 was coming from the general reserve and would have been way over and beyond what we've got here before us. So actually, it was the right decision made then. My question is on the appendices. We've got the conceptual images of the toilets and even the conceptual internal layout, but nothing to tell us where the big fields are being located.
Very valid point.
Fair enough.
Which, forgive me, was a miss on the report. For clarity, the grassed area where the sandpit is at Beachfields, as you go beyond the sandpit looking out to sea, you've got a grass expanse in front of you. The car park, it's on the left side of that grass expanse and will be linked into the existing pathway to the playground.
So it's the closest end to
Tesco.
Tesco.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's for the services, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, we did look at both of right and left of that grassed area. Pre-specification analysis suggested that would be the easier connection to utilities, given the runs that are going up that between the arcades and the playground.
I've got councillor Sarah Stephen next.
Yeah, mine's just a quick one on, we got grant funding for this. And it's now linked in intrinsically with the levelling up and also, you know, grant funding we're looking at one's, after. Remember the, so that it's just bringing it up, and they're all intrinsically linked to actually really lift the area, so it's very, very welcome.
Got councillor Darby.
I'll say, I think this is a really good way going forward. The only concerns on it, it's really aimed at the officers, is when you look at this company A coming at 227, we've seen this previously on the bridge over the canal, we've seen it on the toilets at Minster Lees, which I must say, no, it wasn't no consultation on Minster Lees toilets, but there was many where it was going, not until it started going wrong. It's when they come, these contractors come forward, very nice at saying 227, and he gets sort of way into the job and says, oh, by the way, it's gone wrong, we need another 40 grand. Now, and that be brought back, rather than the officer saying, no, I'm not going to just get on with it. Because I have great concerns on that, because it was done on the bridge, exactly the same, and what I looked at, the original design was with flat stones, and the tender wasn't going to be like that, but it ended up with the flat stones. They charged us another, what, 40, 60 grand. The toilets was on the same lines, wasn't it? They built the base back to front, their mistake, and all of a sudden we ended up paying extra then to put it right. And I'll just get a bit, you know, I think it's a bit strange that we're sort of doing this as a concern when you've got these people that come up with a really cheap tender and halfway through it they want amount of money would probably put them up in the middle.
Councillor Officer, would you like to come back on the
Yes,
questions around tendering process?
Both valid points. I think the bridge, there was a considerable uplift, just over the £40,000 mark, you're quite correct, and that was mainly as a result of change in design on the embankments due to historic England approval. The toilets, there was an additional cost, but it wasn't for the slab being put back the wrong way because that was their error and they corrected it. It was more to do with the changing of the landscaping and an uplift in materials, which they contacted us about as part of that pre-tender process. Because if you recall, that was done during COVID. There was a number of issues with the supply chain and cost of materials during that. So yes, you're right, we did make a decision based on, it was with consultation with senior officers and property, sorry, pre-Joan. And it was felt that as the project was already up and running, it was a decision taken to incur that additional, which I think was £1,000 off the top of my head, but yes, you are right, both projects did have an overlap. In fact, there is a contingency in all the requirements on their pricing model of 10%, so there is a 20k provision in there for contingency one way or the other, but with any construction project, there can be issues. We'll have to cross that bridge if, and hopefully we won't get to that, but if we do, I'll have to have those discussions.
Gonna bring Joanne.
Yeah, so if I can just add to that, so the tender evaluation process the report sets out is 60% on price and 40% on quality. So we do also look at previous track record, we ask for plans and proposals for how the project would be enacted. The company on this occasion also was the highest score for quality. So we do go through that as part of the evaluation process. It isn't just which is the cheapest, it's also, well, it's called most economically advantageous, so it's which one overall has the optimum balance between the cost and the quality. In terms of when we would come back, that would be governed by the procurement regulations by the Constitution. So there would be triggers at which we would have to come back, and triggers within which officers can exercise their delegation to agree to overspends.
Okay. Councillor Beck.
Just a small point of clarification, the previous speaker said we've got grant funding for this.
No, got grant funding for the previous one we were talking about item. But we have got grant funding for park by Barton's Point through the
Levelling up. Yes,
the levelling up outdoor spaces
yes.
section of funding. So there is grant funding that will affect the other part of the site that is beyond the toilet scope we're talking about tonight. So
Yeah.
the wider area, there is grant funding, yes. So
The levelling up one, which is 85,000, has been approved for Barton's Point. None of that will be used for the toilet provision. It will be for enhanced Richmond Park. So
landscaping effect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm going to propose this. I think Councillor Harrison wanted to second it. Did you?
Come back.
Oh, come back, Councillor. True love.
Thank you,
Apologies.
and through you, I
Yeah.
didn't quite catch something that Councillor Beard said about the general reserve. So through you, can I ask, are you saying that the funding for this is the general reserve?
No,
Or the general reserve would have been used in other services?
I said the proposal that you put forward in February 2019 was proposing to take £200,000 from the general reserve. And the council was correct to turn it down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure now that's an agree.
Right, we've cleared that one up. So we've proposed it, we've seconded it. We've got that, excellent. Right, all those in favour of the recommendations as set out in the paper? Okay. Oh, it is unanimous, no? Yeah, oh, it is unanimous, right, that makes life easier. So I'm just checking everyone's voting, yes? Yes? We're happy, right, okay. Good. Right, thank you for that. Right then. Seven. So items that we're just noting that, aren't they? Yeah. But item 7 or agenda item 7 is the forward decisions plan, really just for noting. Oh, there's an updated one. Do make sure you're looking at the updated one. Okay. The addition is the last line of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund in January, which is a silo of work we previously discussed at our last meeting. Agenda item 8. Oh, got a couple of questions, right, sorry. Councillor Bowen and then Councillor Baird. So Councillor Bowen, kick off.
Thank you, Chair. Two things. Similar to, I think, P&R last week, related to hopefully go forward. In terms of the actual decision of this paper, it was suggested that I think P&R
last week, or whichever meeting it was, to actually adopt, call it a full decision plan. But any committee can scrutinise items, it doesn't necessarily need to have a decision. Whether actually going for it might be better to put a full plan, for the committee. That's a minor point. The one I would suggest we need to have as a future item, I mentioned this last week, I would like to see or hear an update in terms of the plans for Swire House. Given all the issues that have been going on recently and future plans on what it is we are going to do with that building and how we're going to make it work for the council. I would like to see that as an agenda item, certainly sooner rather than later, but appreciate that it's a busy time coming up.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
so I totally agree and share your desire, and I have had that discussion. It is around resource, because as you can see, we've got an awful lot on, and then managing an awful lot. So I will take note of what you say, because I would like something to come forward in January, but I just don't want something that is not, you know, hasn't got all the information there just because they're rushing it. So I'd rather the officers have suitable time, but that's a possibility. Councillor Harrison, oh, sorry, Councillor Burt and then Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, hopefully the council vote will be done on one, but the other one was, as an item on the forward plan, I think the levelling up fund should be on there. We're expecting a decision by the end of the year. If we're expecting to hold a meeting in January, we should have a report for that meeting to say what the outcome was, what we plan to do, and what the delivery is going to be.
Yeah, I think as the goalposts have moved quite a lot over the last few months, I think we all know it needs to be on there, but it keeps moving, so we note your comments. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, thanks. I know the brain goes sometimes, but I distinctly remember sitting in the council chamber on a couple of occasions and being told quite clearly and categorically by officers during the training on the new constitution that these committees are for decision making.
Yeah.
We've had this so prolonged.
Hold on. Let the councillor speak first.
And that part of the decision making is the scrutinise the decisions that you are going to make.
Yeah.
So if that has changed, because I'm not on policy resources, then perhaps I need to be on the QT.
It has been a hot topic in the Constitution Working Group, I think. But
Yeah, my view is that nothing's changed. And when we set up these committees, we said it would be to make decisions and to scrutinise. And I believe that that is what we decided, and I think officers are not right when they say it is only decision making. You can't just do that. And we did reassure people that with the loss of the scrutiny committee, the committees themselves, we have the power to scrutinise, not just to make strategic decisions. So I agree with Councillor Barron.
hold on. Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I agree with Councillor Truelove?
Oh my goodness, I'm going home.
No, because, and I think the position as set out by Councillor Truelove then was one that was confirmed by the Chief Exec at the last P&R meeting. So I don't think the goalposts have changed. I think they are what they always should have been. But there has been some confusion on the way, and hopefully we're back where we should be.
So I think we have to be careful. We've got quite a lot coming forwards in the next few meetings. So I think we do need to be careful that we are making the right decision at the right point in time. So it's about bringing that information and making sure we're all aware and that. So I hear what you say, and I'm not ignoring it, because I really would like to see something on Swire House in January, but it is around staffing and resourcing, critically around the decision and making the decision at the right time. So I will be closely discussing that over the next couple of weeks, because it's got to be finalised because of the timing of the committee and obviously the the timing of actually writing the report, gathering the information, we're actually quite tight on the deadline shortly, aren't we?
Because of the Christmas break in the
Yeah.
middle, it kind of brings forward the report writing schedule for this.
So just to manage your expectations, it's not us being objectionable. Councillor Bowen.
Very happy
quickly.
with that. The other thing I would add is can we actually see it on the paper?
Yeah.
Whenever it needs to
To
go.
be confirmed.
Well, yes, it will, yes, it might have to be a TBC.
Yeah.
So, but I'd rather not have a whole list of TBCs that, you know, just keep getting picked back. Okay, right, so on that one, thank you, thank you. That's it, isn't it? So thank you all very much for attending tonight and all your contributions, so much appreciated. One thing I was going to suggest is, Master's House is nearing completion, that the officer might offer a time and date where those of you who can attend, you might want to come and have a look around the building, see the finish of it and to see the building. We're all ambassadors for our assets, so I think it'd be nice to see that investment yourself. So I suspect, given, you know, where the construction timeframe is, I suspect it wouldn't be until the new year, but it'd be a nice idea to have another look. Okay. Right, thank you all very much. Meeting closed at 19:56.
Thank you.